In December 1979, after 4 months in India, I became very sick with amoebic dysentery, food-borne hepatitis A, and dengue fever. The physical body weakened to the point where all that could be done was to lie in bed at the hotel. I had no strength left. The state of weakness was very peaceful, with an awareness that death would soon come. There was no fear, but I had an interest in what lay ahead. With a calm mind, all of the events in life that seemed so important slipped away. They had no interest anymore. A realization came that the mind and body is one complete system, not separate. Because of this weakened state, my thoughts stopped. With the filter of thoughts gone, a greater level of internal awareness arose from the heart. I had heightening the perceptions of intuition, seeing, hearing, and feeling. Even though my body was sick with fever, pain, and weakness, there was a wonderful, blissful state where every breath brought something dynamic. Everything was so still. Each breath became more pleasurable and expansive. Slowly, a gentle shaking started, even though the body was still. Memories came of having done this many times before. It was so familiar. Pleasant and loving feelings flooded my being. The shaking continued. I found myself looking down at this sick body and started to laugh. Soon this body would end. The thought of letting go was pleasurable, as releasing all the entanglements of this life neared. This body was so dense, cold, and heavy. It was good to let this go. My consciousness opened like a lotus flower. Everything became vast beyond the size of this universe. Every part of the universe was part of me, and every part of me was part of the universe. There was complete inclusion and acceptance. This was so far beyond any expectation, yet at the same time familiar. Hence, it wasn't overwhelming. Another realization came to me. Everything is known, and there is nothing to learn. It was clearly understood that there is no heaven or hell. Life on earth is not a school. There is nothing to learn. Life on earth is just an experience, nothing more. Then suddenly, the fierce grip of fear engulfed me. It felt suffocating, sticky, addictive, desirable, all-consuming and compelling. The fear started pulling me into reincarnation and away from all the inclusion and expansive awareness. Aspects of this fear included desire, suffering, and isolation. Identifying with the fear was dragging me back into an unconscious state. Watching this, Osho's words came back to me. If you can observe fear, then how can fear be part of you? By observing the fear, I could see the separation between myself and the fear. No sooner had I started to observe fear, its grip faded and disappeared. As the fear released, it was followed by other negative emotions of despair, guilt, greed, envy, and desire for another body. This too could be observed as external addictive influences. Soon all external energy stopped. The feeling of complete awareness of center returned. My roommate was a nurse at the time, and she was with me as my body died. I watched her from a perspective outside my body. She was taking my pulse and then dropped my wrist in despair. I could also sense her thoughts. She was stressed, not because of my death, but because she was faced with dealing with my body. Looking at the body, what arose was the perfection of the life just lived. This life could not be described as pleasant. In fact, it was filled with suffering and hardship. Yet it seemed so perfect as it was observed. Then other lives lived started to appear in a visual format. Each life appeared in a bubble. The entire light from beginning to end, in an instant, with awareness of every moment of that life, as if it was just lived from birth to death. There were many lives, too many to count. Each life was perfect. Reincarnation is part of the human experience, but it is optional. Once I was aware of the addictions pulling me back to another life, then I was ready for what came next. There was a shift and a slight movement. I did not go anywhere. I did not travel 1,000 miles. It was the same place, yet it was different, less dense, and more expansive. Everything was bathed in a golden light. There were many others around me. They were all known to me, and me to them. My return was met with overwhelming rejoicing. I was home. At the time, I didn't have words to describe the process, like dimensional shifts. I shifted from the third to the fourth dimension as the life left my body, with ever-expanding awareness that reached to the edge of the universe. Then I shifted into the fifth dimension, where everything was illuminated and golden. Later, I heard this was what the Tibetans call the land of the golden light. Everything was absolute perfection. A being came to me and asked me to return to the body in the hotel room. My response was, "No, I don't want to leave this wondrous place." Then another being, or rather the persona of a man, seated at a table at a cafe, gestured for me to sit down. He introduced himself. In my last life on earth, I was known as George Gurdjieff. I did not know the name at the time. He continued, "We need you to go back." After my joyful reunion on this wonderful plane, I was reluctant to do so, but he asked in such a way that I could not refuse. All communication was without words. A thought came to me from another entity that had welcomed me back. "If you return, you will lose all memory of this encounter." I commenced bargaining with Gurdjieff the terms of my return, on one condition, that you don't take this memory from me, and that I retain all of this experience intact. He could not refuse me either, and it was agreed to let me retain this death experience. Then he added, "This is the last time you will have to return, I promise." I took great comfort in this. As I was guided back, first into the fourth dimension, I could feel the expanded awareness shutting down. Then I felt the re-entry into the cold, dense body. My roommate completely freaked out when I reanimated. The next thing I knew, an Indian doctor was at my side. He had just walked in off the street and said, "I'll take care of you now. I'm here to help you." He brought me sugar water to get my blood pressure back up and ordered some medications. He never asked for any money, and I never saw him again.